Hello, coming to you from the isolated city of virtual board gaming, Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome to the Out of the Dust podcast. I'm your host, Lonely Bryce. Tied into the popular recurring Out of the Dust geek list on Board Game Geek, the Out of the Dust podcast is a bi-weekly podcast that is focused on re-exploring games we played that we hadn't previously played in a year or more. Why did the game get dusty? Why did you decide to dust it off? How does the game compare to how you remembered it? Are you likely to play it more often in the future? These are the questions that we're interested in examining on Out of the Dust. This week on the podcast, episode 64. On the Out of the Dust segment, I'll bring Bruxelles 1893 out of the dust, and a contributor will dust off Pandemic Iberia. On the reaction segment, I discuss how my board gaming is faring in the midst of COVID-19 and social distancing. On the What I've Been Playing segment, I review Fast Sloths. On the Obscure Bryce Game segment, I review Palazzo. And we wrap up the episode by counting down my top 10 games I played with my sons in 2019. I had a chance to bring Bruxelles 1893 out of the dust recently. Bruxelles 1893 is a World's Fair-themed point salad game for publisher Z-Man and one-hit wonder designer Etienne Espreman, which came out in 2013. Surprisingly, because it's a Z-Man game, the publisher actually reprinted it a couple of years ago, which makes it noteworthy in their catalog because of that distinction. I learned it when it originally came out and enjoyed it enough to put it on my wish list. It was never a high-priority acquisition, though, and it's still on my wish list. I last played it 3 years, 3 months, and 13 days ago. That play was an online play at boitejeu.net, and I remember souring on the game a little bit because the turn-based online play stretched on way too long. But I knew my wife would like the theme, and when we were together at the local board game cafe a couple of months ago with some friends, this seemed like a good pick for a higher player count game. It had been in the back of my mind recently because I wanted to give it another try. The cafe play went over really well. My wife managed a dramatic come-from-behind victory thanks to a concentrated strategy of focusing on collecting endgame bonus scoring modifiers for leftover money. That cafe play even inspired me to try the game online again. But that play didn't go nearly as well. I don't know. There's just something about this game that is lost significantly in an online implementation. I'm probably going to avoid playing it online again. But the physical copy increases in acquisition priority thanks to the positive experience of the cafe play. I haven't actually played it with 2 players, but I could see it working well at that player count with my wife in the future. Let's see what a contributor brought out of the dust. David Fox, username Quaid, brought Pandemic Iberia out of the dust. He last played it 2 years, 6 months, and 11 days ago, and currently rates it a 7 out of 10. He writes, I played with one other experienced gamer who did a fine job, and 2 complete novices who spent most of their actions walking from city to city. Not wanting to alpha game, we let them do so for the first half of the play, then started to play more optimally. As it was, we lost with 1 more action needed, so probably, experientially, got it about right for the new gamers. Pandemic Iberia is a good iteration of the franchise with a lot of enjoyable variations. Thanks for the contribution, David. I'm a big fan of Iberia and go back and forth on whether it or Cthulhu is the best all-time spin-off for Pandemic. Reaction segment time. I thought it would be interesting this episode to discuss how the pandemic and everything it brings with it is impacting my board gaming habits. Like most people, the COVID-19 social distancing regulations have kept me away from my regular groups and regular board gaming activities. In normal circumstances, my wife, who works at a grocery store bakery, would be considered an essential employee. But the poor girl tore her rotator cuff a few weeks ago and had to take a leave of absence because she was unable to perform her duties. In retrospect, in a few months, that might turn out to have been fortuitous timing. Our schedules usually overlap, but her being at home has provided us a greater opportunity to play games together, as long as the game in question is not a deck builder because her range of arm motion deters a lot of shuffling. I'm also at home most of the time because both of the colleges I teach at have moved classes online, which I actually like a lot. I usually teach online over the short winter semester, so it was easy to adapt my current courses to that format, which is a format I'm a big fan of because of the convenience and ease teaching online fosters. One of the places I teach at has a small enough staff that I still go in for a few hours each week for some office hours. The combination of these 2 things is keeping me as busy as usual, but saving me some driving time. When I do have to drive somewhere, I am loving the decreased amount of traffic, and that's going to be a big disappointment when that eventually returns to normal. In any event, more frequent gaming with my wife and kids has made up in quantity what I've lost in frequency with my usual gaming groups. My solo plays have declined, but that's okay. I've noted an increase in the frequency of getting games from my unplayed shelves to the table, which is even better. I treated myself to quite a few new ones with tax return funds and have had a quick turnaround time from punching to play for a very positive percentage of them. They've all been positively received too, which is always welcome. My purchases are usually most often motivated by the best deal, which has usually resulted in shopping mostly online. But there's no denying the obstacles that local game stores are facing at this time. So I think it's cool that so many publishers are taking the stance of donating some of their online proceeds to local game stores to assist them through the challenging times they are finding themselves in. The first publisher I noticed doing this was Japanime Games, and a lot of others have followed suit. Naturally, Asmodee is not one of those companies. Instead, they recently announced a $5 price increase to the MSRP of their games. What is up with that? Publishers are working with local game stores to help each other stay afloat, and everyone is feeling good. And along comes the monolith Asmodee and goes in completely the opposite direction. Who the heck is making their PR decisions over there? This is even worse a look for them than usual. Ugh. But despite the challenges, local game stores are finding some creative ways to help their local communities of gamers. Where possible, a lot of stores are offering curbside pickup of games and even doorstep delivery. And a lot of people are taking advantage of these generous opportunities. A lot of non-traditional gamers are checking these places out for the first time, desperate for entertainment activities to do with families during social isolation or lockdowns. If our local game stores can make it through these tough circumstances, I'm hopeful they can emerge stronger than ever with an increased consumer base. That would be nice! I've got a lot more to report about my personal experience and what's going on in my local community, so I'll continue the COVID-19 board game perspective reaction next episode. This week on the What I've Been Playing segment, I'm going to tell you about Fast Sloths, the new large box pick-up and deliver game from designer Friedemann Friese and publisher Stronghold Games. I was very tempted to pick this up when I saw it at BGG-Con last November, but I hemmed and hawed on the price and decided to wait until tax return time, at which point it was the first game I treated myself to. I love sloths. They're my favorite animal, but I was nervous about the game. Friedemann Friese has been a hit-or-miss designer for me lately. I don't think much of his Fable system or 504, but there's no denying his ingenuity or originality. I respect Friedemann a lot because he comes up with these ideas no one else does, and he's not afraid to take chances. His games might not always be completely successful, but they always guarantee an innovative experience. Here's how it works. Players are sloths trying to get an assortment of animals to pick them up and deliver them to various trees on the hex space board where they can collect and munch leaves. The number of leaves a player has collected dictates how many animal cards they draw at the beginning of a turn, how many they must discard, and what their hand size limit is at the end of their turn. These limitations make things more difficult as the game progresses, which is a clever catch-up mechanism that feels both thematic as the sloths get stuffed, and is a satisfying challenge for the players to navigate their hand management around. The animal cards are divided into separate decks for each of the 6 animal species in play in any given game. The cards each have an ascending value on them, and when players drop cards at the beginning of their turn, they must draw from different decks. Then players choose as many cards of a single type of animal from their hand to play that turn, and move the animal the sum of spaces dictated by the value of the combined cards. When the animal passes next to or on top of a sloth, they pick them up. When the animal passes by a tree, the sloth grabs a leaf on the way. When the animal has expended all of its move points, the sloth hops off onto an adjacent space. The first sloth to collect all but one of their leaves from the board wins. So where does Fast Sloths fall on the hit-or-miss spectrum? Well, not only do I think Fast Sloths leans on the hit side of the spectrum, but I think it's Friedemann Friese's best game in over a decade. Not since the onset of his trivia trilogy with Fauna have I been so enamored with a Friedemann Friese game. But Fast Sloths really works. It's a delightful logistics puzzle trying to get my sloth from point A to point B while managing my hand at the same time. With 12 different animal species in the game, each with their own movement rules, there's a staggering number of combinations to make each game unique and a fresh challenge, making the game infinitely replayable. There's an intense tension that builds over the course of the game as leaves get munched, and all of the games I've played so far have been super close. The fun theme is just icing on the cake for a mechanically joyous game. I'm really glad I picked this one up, and will look forward to playing it for years to come. Obscure Bryce game segment time. This week in the podcast, I'm going to tell you about Palazzo, a 2005 Renaissance-themed tower-building game from designer Rainer Knizia. This is game number 2 in the Alea Medium Box series of games and one of the more obscure entries in the series. Currently racking up only about a dozen logged plays a month on BGG. I became aware of the game when I saw it on one of the Dice Tower Cruise Top 100 list a couple of years ago. I don't remember seeing it on any of the most recent iterations of their list, so it might have fallen out. But in any event, as an auction-style tile-laying game, I was intrigued enough to add the game to my wish list, where it lingered for quite some time. But I was able to snag a copy for a few bucks at the BGG FallCon virtual flea market, and it was one of the first games for that massive haul I was able to get to the table. Here's how it works. Players are master builders trying to build the best collection of palaces. Their success in this endeavor measured, of course, in victory points. Points are accrued by the sum of windows in a palace, but only if the palace is at least 3 stories high. Palaces of 4 or 5 stories high earn bonus points, and palaces constructed entirely of a single of the 3 building materials earn yet more bonus points. The floors of these palaces are attained primarily through a unique auction system in which players can only bid one of 3 different types of currency. Once a player starts bidding in a particular currency, they can only increase their bid later through the same currency, though any 3 of the same value of currency cards count as a bid of 15. On a player's turn, they can choose one of 4 action options, auctioning all of the floors on one of the 4 quarries. Alternatively, a player can buy 1 or 2 floors from the central market at a cost of 10 minus the number of tiles in the market. Action option number 3 enables a player to remove a single floor to or from one of their palaces under construction, or remove it from the game entirely. Each floor is numbered 1 through 5, and players can only build new floors in a palace by building in sequential order from bottom floor to top. Action option number 4 enables all the players to draw additional currency cards into their hands. Play continues this way until 5 game end tiles have been discovered from the tile stacks used to replenish purchased tiles, and that's all there is to it. Well, Palazzo continues the streak of the Alea numbered box series, working successfully for me. The triple currency system, hand management focus, and auction limitations make it feel unique from other auction games. This game came out at a time when auctions were all the rage in Euro games, and many of them have been largely forgotten over time. But it's been a lot of fun revisiting these older auction games. They really hold up and still stand out in the crowd amongst more recent board games. It's often satisfying to build things in games, and the additional focus of that element in Palazzo makes it stand out even in the crowd of unique auction games. It's an accessible game and possesses that classic Knizia elegance. I'm glad I had a chance to add it to my collection and hope to explore it more in the coming months. This episode of the podcast, I'm going to continue my review of 2019 with a countdown of the top 10 games I played in 2019 with my sons. Some of these came out in 2019, and some of them are considerably older. Some of them I attained for the first time in 2019, but they're all ones that accrued significant numbers of plays, and I had a fun time accruing those. Number 10, Pengaloo. This is my 5-year-old's favorite game. It's been a staple in our monthly family game night demo at the Union Pacific Museum in Council Bluffs. He does a great job teaching it to other kids, but sometimes the family nights are not well attended, so I'll join him in a game, which I'm always happy to do. Number 9. I couldn't resist ranking this one number 9, of course. I taught my oldest son this one after enjoying the game several times with my wife and deciding he'd be able to handle it no problem. I was right, and it's turned out to be a good way to sneakily get him to work on his multiplication skills. Number 8. Kung Fu Zoo. This has become a family favorite after being a 2018 Christmas present. The theme is cute and the mechanics surprisingly challenging. It is really tough to flick a cube and get it to go where you want. Number 7, Super Tooth. This is another favorite of my youngest son. If we are waiting for my oldest son to do an activity of some kind somewhere, Super Tooth is one of our go-to games to fill the time. It's portable, quick, and the theme is tons of fun. Number 6, the Godzilla card game. I wasn't aware of this game until I saw it at a local con. Since my oldest son was just getting into Godzilla at the time, I thought this would be a good fit for us. The huge host of icons create a bit of a learning curve, but I'm glad to see they haven't been a frustrating barrier for him. The Chrono Clash system is solid, and it's nice to finally have a Godzilla game that is actually fun. Number 5, My Little Scythe. My kids got this for me for Christmas in 2018, and we got in several games over the course of the year. They got the hang of it really quick, and we've had a lot of fun with it together. There was a point in time where I wasn't convinced if there was an audience for my little scythe, but it really does work well as a family-weight game. Number 4, Karoo! This has gone down as my best Kickstarter experience of all time, and I'm checking out all of Gavin Birnbaum's Kickstarters from here on out as a result. As for Karoo, the kids love it. Launching cubes at a bouncy ball with catapults is just as much fun as it sounds. The youngest needs a little help balancing his catapult, but he really gets into it. Number 3, Drop It! What started out as an impulse play-to-win play at a local convention turned into one of my family game hits of the year. The game does a great job of creating memorable and dramatic moments wrapped up in a remarkable balance of strategy and dexterity. Number 2, Pitch Car. I got a nearly complete set of this with most of the expansions, and it's been a family favorite over the course of the entire year. Setting up the track is just as much fun as playing the game itself and fosters a lot of creativity. My kids and I have made setting up an epic track a new tradition at our local cons, and we've hosted some very enjoyable and well-received races as a result. Number 1, Crokinole. I'm super glad I invested in my own board. My family and I have played this more regularly together than anything else over the course of the year, and have had a great time with it every single play. It's super fun seeing the kids get excited each time I take the board down off the wall. Well, that will do it for episode 64. Thanks for listening. Feel free to join the Out of the Dust Podcast Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at OutOfTheDustBGG. Leave a comment at the Guild. PM me on BGG under user handle Radagast14. Or email me at radagast14@CenturyLink.net. And join the Out of the Dust conversation yourself at our monthly geek list at BGG. Alright, play me out, Tananda!